Just wow. I just drove past my local voting area on the way into work this morning, and it just literally hit around 6 o'clock. You can vote in Indiana starting at 6 o'clock, and the line is already around the building. I live in small town Indiana. The town I live in is probably in the 55 to 6,000 people range, so not a very big county or a big town. And to be honest with you, they opened up a early election in Indiana about a week and a half ago, and every single day when I would be going to work or coming home from work or going to the store or whatever, there was a line at any given time of the day. Sometimes it was longer than others, but there was always a line going out the door. And that's just a snapshot of what here it is in the little town I live in, what we're looking at. It is. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in my entire life. The first time I was ever able to vote was in 1998 when I was 18, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's the first time I could vote, and yeah, so it was. It's been something that I've witnessed for quite a few cycles now, I guess you can say, and I've never seen anything like this. I remember in the past I could roll in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. There'd be a handful of people in front of me or whatnot, but it wasn't anything crazy. I think the last two elections were pretty, you had to stand in line. It wasn't super nuts, at least not that I remember. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. Early election, I don't know if it was a thing as much back then. Maybe it was. Again, I'm not 100% for sure. But this year, this is the first year I really paid attention to that type of thing. And I mean, it's wild. Absolutely wild. That just here in the state of Indiana, which is going to be Republican, which is going to be conservative in general, which more than likely will vote probably up and down the ballot Republicans, that the Hoosiers here in the state are, and again, my county, my city I live in, have not stopped going in since a week and a half ago when they first opened up elections, early voting. It's just pretty shocking to say the least. And like I said, it never stopped. It has not stopped. And today when I drove by on the way to work, because I'm heading into work right now, it's doesn't show any signs of slowing down. So pretty well. I think I saw on the news today when I was getting ready to head in that Indiana and Kentucky are two of the first to start the voting, and we're two of the states that end the voting the earliest. And again, Indiana and Kentucky are historically pretty conservative and will more than likely be voting for Trump to win. That's not going to be any kind of big surprise there. And, we do have some serious spots for governor and senator and House of Representatives in the state of Indiana. So there's some of that going on. Well, maybe not senator this time. I think there's some House of Representative spots, governor for sure. So we do have some elections that mean something important to the state of Indiana. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out. I think it's like a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the state of Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out today. But yeah, I think it's important to just kind of just discuss about it and just, most importantly, to think about. Now, I think if you know me or my channel, you know that I lived in Asia for a long time. I lived in Japan for a long time. I lived for a short time in South Korea, China. And so you kind of really understand and appreciate the freedoms that we have here versus in some other parts of the world. when I was in China, it was monitoring the people at all times. You were being monitored. I stayed in an apartment building, and you had to check in and out on a regular every time you came in and out of your room, with the security, where you came from, who you are. There were guards or soldiers that would be stationed all over the city I was in. I was in Guangzhou, which is in the southern part of China, and they would keep an eye on what you're doing. They would ask questions all the time. They always could ask you for your papers, your passport, of course, your visa status. I had friends who were there who had routinely people come in, the Chinese secret police, and threaten them and to try to upheaval their life. Hey, what's up, Ray? Good morning. I had some of them that would try to have them turn on their own people and try to get them to rat out family or friends or acquaintances to trying to catch them they're doing something they're not supposed to do while they're in China. Some of them got thrown out of China. And so, I was there. I'll never forget this. This will tell you how long it's been. Dan Rather was still on CBS. I think the CBS is what he used to be on. And I was watching that, maybe it was ABC. Anyways, Dan Rather was on. I'll never forget this. This was like the first time I really noticed a huge difference in the way we approach things. Well, at least it used to be. Now America does the exact same thing, which is something I never thought I would see. But in China, they had like the CBS late night news, right? And they would stream it or show it on Chinese television. And there was how they'd always do like a bumper before they would go to a commercial break, and they would tell you about the next, topic on the next part on the other side of the commercial. They would tell you what they'd be talking about. So when they came back from a commercial, you knew it was going to be about such and such topic. So this specific topic that Dan Rather mentioned during the first part of the program was then going to go into, after the commercial break, we're going to come back and talk about China in a negative light, of course, from the perspective of whatever. I can't remember the exact article or conversation. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like watching the show because it's like 6, 7 o'clock at night or whatever it was in China. So I'm just watching it, and nothing else going on. And I came back, and that was completely missing. They skipped that, they cut that out of the broadcast and put in something else. So, it's certain, and so that whole section was completely gone of the news broadcast. And this is probably like in 2005 or 6, I would say. And, this is something that I would have never imagined in a million years would happen in America. I used to even say, like, I'm glad America's not like China, because, that's ridiculous. And then here we are, fast forward about 20 years later, and we're just like China. We manipulate the news, we change things up, we omit things, we cut it out, we manipulate the way the verbiage looks to make people look better or worse, depending on the situation that we're trying to go for. The legacy news, the news that are like the corporate news, actively works against certain candidates that work for other candidates. And this is wild, absolutely wild. I remember telling friends, I just remember having so many conversations, be like, that is wild that China does that. I'm so glad America doesn't do things like that. I'm so glad that they just give you the news and you just making the decision based off of what they're telling you. And now it's painfully obvious that it is manipulated and it is shaded in the direction they want you to believe or think, in the hopes that you don't do any actual research, in the hopes that you don't actually you don't have any questions or anything. It is really wild, really wild. And that's really the reason why I think a situation like today is so important. Because you have someone that has benefited from that exact situation. And you have someone who has not benefited anyway, and nor should you benefit in any way. It should be your words reported straight with the news and not commentary, not their views or their quote-unquote insights, just the news. And you have someone who's been propped up and helped with that, and you have somebody who had not that be the case. And this wouldn't even be a close election in real life if it wasn't the situation. So I'm interested to find out how it's all going to shake out. Regardless of who you vote for, I think it's important to vote. It's a luxury we have as Americans that a lot of other countries don't have. And I think that if you're on the fence about voting, you need to make an effort to get out there and do it. At the end of the day, it involves you, it involves your family, it involves your children, it involves your finances, it involves your way of life, so it can involve your protection, your safety. RFK Jr. said something in a video that he released, I think maybe this yesterday, and he said, I'm paraphrasing this, I'm going to mess it up probably, but he said something like, it's important for you to vote for your children. It's more important for you to vote for your children and to love your children than to hate your neighbor. And I think that's so true. And like I said, I might have got that wrong, but it's basically saying it's more important to go out and love your children and love your country than to hate your neighbor. And I think that's very important. And I mean, we live in right now a country that is very divisive, that we look at each other as, the enemy in some respects, which is unfortunate. But you need to think about voting like your children's lives depend on it, because they do. It does really involve that, and not hate the other person. But it's more important for you to think about what is best for your children. And I think that's how I approach it. I mean, even before I became a parent, that's how I approach those kind of things. What's best for the future? And I guess that depends on you and what you look for as a good future, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to, is what do you view, and what is your compass tell you what's important? What is a good future, right? I mean, I guess that's the $1 million question. And that's, every person's going to come into that at a different way, right? What I value as important, or like a deal breaker, a non-negotiable, might be quite different than you. And that's okay. I think that's great. I mean, that's what makes America a unique place, a great place. That it used to be that you can have different opinions and ideas, and that you still could break bread and still respect each other. In some cases, of course, it's like when it comes to good family and friends love each other. But now, unfortunately, everybody looks at each other as they're the problem, that the other person's the enemy, which, it's just so unfortunate. And everybody has a different perspective on how we got there from even that. And I'm trying to be, I'm sure, but if you're listening to me, you can kind of get a feeling of what I think and how I feel, what my thoughts are. I'm trying to be somewhat, ambiguous to a degree. But I do think it's very important that if you want to be part of the process, and definitely if you're going to reap the rewards or complain about the situation after the fact, that you don't really get a say if you don't vote. And I think that's the big thing, is like, I have the biggest problem is the people who complain. A lot of times the ones who complain the most did nothing to get themselves to help the situation to be improved, and they didn't do anything. They didn't vote. They didn't get out there. They didn't encourage others to vote. They didn't vote themselves. But they're the first ones that complain about how things are going south or not going well. or that they have less money, or that they have less opportunities, or whatever the case may be, right? And it's like, well, you could have had something to do with that if you would have got out and voted, if you would have got and, gave a damn. So it's important to do that. And again, even if you don't vote the way I would like for you to vote, it's important to vote. Like in Japan, they have a prime minister, right? Their prime minister is essentially like a president, their version of a president. But you don't vote for the prime minister while you're in Japan. You vote for their underlings, they're kind of like House of Representatives, they're senators. And then those people vote for who they think is the best person for prime minister. So you're voting for the people who are going to make a decision on how the country may go. This is very similar to England as well. I think Japan pretty much took the English model and put it in place because they have a monarchy in England. So Japan obviously is a monarchy, and so that's why. So they use them as a model. But so you don't vote for anybody that actually makes a lot of changes and decisions for you as a person in Japan, because you're voting for their underlings, essentially, hoping that those people will vote your view. But in Japan, and I could be wrong about this because I'm not by any means a Japanese historical, political, what do you call it, a professor or anything like that. But as the Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP in Japan, has pretty much had control of Japan and Japanese politics and Japanese way of life, at least politically, from almost the beginning, for the last 50, 60 years, maybe longer. And then they always complain about how things don't get better or change. Well, they vote the exact same people into power every single time, with no variations, no changes. Obviously, that's problematic if you're not happy with your current situation, but the Japanese are unwilling to take a chance on somebody else. And I'm sure there might have been every once in a great while, there might be a switcheroo and someone else gets in there. But I mean, from my knowledge, my understanding, it has pretty much been exclusively the Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP in Japan, who has had control from the outset. I don't know much about South Korea and China. Obviously, we already know that situation. If you don't know what's going on with China, then I don't know what to tell you. Your head in the sand. But in America, you have a lot of say. And the thing I also like to tell people, what's important, is that not only are you voting for this year or today for a president, but you're also voting for, which I think is sometimes even more important in some cases, because it can affect you and your family, is you're directing for school board members. So if you have kids in school, if you have grandkids in school, and you don't know who actually are on the school board, and you're voting for people to stay in or vote them out or add them or remove them or whatever, it is important to know what they stand for, because they are directly influencing your child. And I think a lot of us figured this out during the COOF of 2020, what was going on in our school systems, and I think that helps a lot of us. Because I was completely oblivious, and I shouldn't have been. I ever had run-ins with the teachers and principals in the past prior to that, with things that was brought to my attention by my kids. But I didn't think of how as such a huge problem as I later on found out it was. And then I caught them with their hands in the cookie jar on multiple occasions, and they knew that they got caught. And so, of course, they had to correct and redirect the ship, because they knew they were going to be doing a Titanic and going in an iceberg dealing with me, because I wasn't going to let some of the stuff slide. But really, at the end of the day, the school board members, when it involves your children or your grandchildren, set the agenda for what that school is going to do and that school district will be doing. I can speak to our situation a couple years ago, and it hasn't had a full resolution yet, I don't believe. But a couple years ago, the school system that I live in took it upon themselves to lie to the parents about their children who would come to school and say that they wanted to change their genders and change pronouns and all this kind of stuff, and the school actively would not tell the parent that the kids, that their own children were saying they were different genders or trying to change their names and all this at the school level, and they would not notify the parent about this. And the school actively lied to the parents. The school actively omitted information from the parents so the kid could be whatever the kid was trying to say or do, and the parent had no idea what was going on with their own children in the school. Now, the school is legally supposed to tell you if they give your child, or they have to request or ask if the kid needs like a aspirin or an Advil because they have a headache. But they don't have to tell you that your kid's coming into school and saying they're a totally different gender, or they changed their name, or that they're claiming to be something else, or they want to have some sort of like conversation with a professional about like gender reassignment surgery. I mean, are you out of your mind? So the school's required to tell them that they're going to get a baby aspirin, but they don't have to tell you that your kid wants to change their gender. Like the ridiculousness of that statement is otherworldly. But that's what was going on in the school system I was in. So you had a whistleblower, a counselor, said, I'm not doing this. They found the paper, they had the actual documentation that showed the school was actively doing this. They released it to a lot of us parents that knew something was rotten in Denmark. And then those people got in touch with news agencies and things of that sort, and they put them on the spotlight for this. That counselor doing the right thing by saying, I'm not lying to the parents about their children and what they're doing at school, was then fired by the school. And they try to say, they fired her because she leaked the information, and that was not, that was like a breach of contract or something along those lines, which is not the reason why. The real reason why is because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and they were put on notice, and everybody was, of course, as expected, up in arms that the school was actively trying to hide things from these children's parents because they thought they knew better than the parents. It was unbelievable. This is small town Indiana. So you best believe if that's happening in Indiana, small town Indiana, town of no more than 6,000 people, that is going on and all over the United States. So then, no kidding, in the following year, or in the same year, the state of Indiana passed a law saying that you as a school system or a district or whatever are not allowed to do what they did to this teacher or this counselor, that you must notify the parents. So the counselor ended up being correct in what she did. The school was 100% in the wrong, regardless of, even in the state of Indiana said that you don't have to do it, which thank God they didn't do that. That is a moral thing that you need to notify a parent that is going on, because this child obviously needs some sort of help. They need some sort of counseling. They need some sort of discussion with a professional or their parents. This is not something that should just be kept from them. Regardless if you believe it or not, or you like it or not, it is your child. It is asinine to believe that they should be able to avoid having to talk to the parents about legit real life issues. And so, of course, this counselor, as I don't blame her, has sued the school system for wrongful termination, and I'm sure when it's said and done, she will win that case, and she will probably be having a nice payout from that, which she deserves. And even though that would affect directly our kids in the school system, she was wrongfully terminated. Instead of them just taking and admitting to it and taking the L like a respectful entity, and just be like, yeah, we messed up. We got our hand caught in the cookie jar. We backed the wrong horse. They fired her, and then they tried to, pretend that wasn't the reason why, which of course was, was BS. So, that's what you're dealing with in Indiana. So, you can only imagine what it's like that in other parts of the country. It's just ridiculous. And, they were, I mean, anyways, I mean, I could just go on and on. But, I mean, that's what you're dealing with in the state of Indiana. Now, that has been since addressed, I believe. But it's just another thing that you have to think about. You have to just keep in mind. We as parents don't want to deal with it. So that's what I was saying to bring them back, as Trump likes to talk about what does he call it, the swerve. So to bring it back is what RFK Jr. said, is like, you need to love your kids more than you hate your enemy or hate your neighbor. And everything I think about, I do, is because I love my kids so much. And I want what's best for my child. And I think that at the end of the day, it's quite clear, at least for me, what that looks like as a nation. And, I hope that, a lot of people think about that when it's their turn to sit there, and if they already thought that in the week leading up to it and voted, or today, that you go out, that you think about what is best for you, what's best for your kid or kids. And I mean, you could not have any more of a drastic difference in the candidates. I mean, at the end of the day, and I don't talk about this part of it a lot either, but this is really going to put it out there. The cat will be out of the bag. But I don't believe, and I mean, when you vote, you're not voting. I'm not voting for a minister. I'm not voting for a pastor, a priest, a counselor, a upstandable, whatever you want to call it, like a trust. I mean, I don't even know what I'm looking for. Like just a person above reproach, right? You're not voting for. I'm voting for all of us are broken people. No one is perfect. So I'm voting for the person who I think has the most desire for what is best for us as a people, as a nation, as a country. I'm not voting for him because I think I'm not voting for whoever it is as my minister, or as my counselor, as a psychiatrist or a priest. And so, and as I've talked about before, I'm a Christian, and I know politics are a dirty business, and I know people say whatever they need to say to try to get elected, and I'm not saying that anybody is in any way like the chosen person for a religious perspective at all, because that's definitely not the case. But I think for me, as it has a clear conscience, I want to vote for a person or a party that doesn't want to murder babies at will. And I am shocked when I hear professing Christians who think it is the right to kill babies. I mean, that is to me the most diabolical thing I could ever imagine. It really is. It really, truly is. And that's just something I just have such a hard time understanding. I have a hard time understanding how you would want, if you have a child if you're a parent of a daughter, why you would want her to go up against biological boys and men in sports, which again is something that is so diabolical and evil that it's just unbelievable. If they're playing them in volleyball, basketball, wrestling, whatever, like contact sports. I mean, as they get older, it's into boxing and things of that sort. It would just be, it is shocking at how much people think that's an acceptable scenario. I do not get it. Like, common sense, how does it not go into play? I do not get it. I do not understand how you should think that you can just leave a border open with a sign that's like blinking that says, come on in, everything's taken care of, we're going to take care of all your needs, and not be concerned about who's coming across that border. Because if you truly believe that an open border is fine, then you should leave your house and your car unlocked all the time, and then just think that no matter what, it's going to be safe, it's going to be fine. Leave your car unlocked at all given times. Leave your doors of your house unlocked, your windows unlocked. Let them be wide open, and then let them just sit there. And then if you truly believe nothing will happen badly to your house, your car, your belongings, then either you're naive and stupid, or you are willfully part of the problem, because that is exactly what is happening by saying, let me just open our borders. We just let anyone and everyone come in. We don't know anything about you. For the people who came in the front door now have to wait and do, because they're doing all the right things, because we have legitimately millions of people now that are able to do whatever they want whenever they want without any questions asked. It's mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. As someone who's experienced immigration in America and in Japan and in South Korea and in China, going through the process of getting visas, working in other countries, living in other countries, I know the process. It takes time, it takes money, it takes endurance, but guess what? You are rewarded at the end by doing those things. But I truly believe that people who think that, who vote that way, do not think about what they're actually doing and how it affects everyone, including themselves, until it's too late. People don't think about it because that doesn't affect them until it's too late, and then they change their minds. That's why you have so many people that are like independents and Democrats now, shockingly, are either opening to being Trump supporters or vote Republican for the first time ever, because they realize these policies are crippling us as a nation. And our safety and our well-being is now jeopardized. And if you don't believe that, then you do your own research and deep diving and seeing how tough it has been in these cities and states that have had these kind of scenarios where it's just like unfiltered, unchecked, problems with, illegal immigration, with daughters getting annihilated in sports and high school and college sports by men, by women having on-demand abortions because they just don't want to have the kid, or they want to wait till the very last minute to have, to kill the baby's life with no reason for the mother's safety, rape and incest, and the safety of the mother, the health of the mother. Let's say those things, you take those out of the equation. That is a very small group of abortions, very small. Most of it's abortion on demand. And I just don't get it. I do not get how we as a nation have so much turned our way and our back on God and his grace and his provision and his love for our country to turn into what it is now. It really is just so shocking. But that's where we're at now. So I don't know, guys. That's where we're at. I'm almost at work. Nothing overtly magical. Just some free flowing thoughts. I'm sure it'll be met with a lot of sneering and jeering and mockery and all that, but that is totally fine. I can handle it. But at the end of the day, I would like for everyone, if you can, go out and vote and make a difference and try to help ourselves and our nation and our families and our children. And we'll see how things go. We might find out today. We might find out tomorrow. Hopefully we'll find out sooner than later how things are going to shake out. And then there'll be a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth on somebody on one side or another, right? Some party's going to win, or some individual's going to win, and their supporters are going to be happy, and the other ones are going to be devastated, and that's the way it's going to go. So until next time, guys, I look forward to the future of our less polarizing conversation, I'm sure. Peace.